Well, this is the first performance I'm doing in my socks. I thought I would share some kind of anecdotal type of experiences from throughout my time in Iceland. A lot of it, I think, pretty funny. But then when I arrived here just now, I thought, why the hell am I not reading from Weather Reports U, which is part of the project here. Library of Water includes this publication. So I think I'm going to start with Weather Reports U and use the voice of the individuals we interviewed to talk a little bit about Iceland, rather than these cute little anecdotes of mine. And you know, you never know, you may want more, and I'm prepared with. So we start with the introduction to Library of Water, a collective self-portrait. My weather began back in grade school. In class, the teacher announced a hurricane was on its way. With that, she dismissed us and emphatically instructed, "Run home." Scared at first, exhilarated afterwards, I ran all the way. At home, I crouched beneath the picture window, watching as the sky turned green and the trees whipped and snapped in the wind. Everyone has a story about the weather. This may be one of the only things that each of us holds in common. And although it varies greatly from here to there, it is finally one weather that we share. Small talk everywhere occasions the popular distribution of the weather. Some say talking about the weather is talking about oneself. This seems to hold true in a general sense on an individual level. But for entire populations as well, the weather is reflection. The weather is reflection and measure. In this century, as young as it is, because this was written back in 2006. In this century, as young as it is, we have merged into a single global us. With each passing day, we can watch as the weather actually becomes us. Weather Reports U is one beginning of a collective self-portrait. Ghost producing a self-portrait. We took oral reports on location that were then transcribed, edited, and translated. Word of mouth directed us from one participant to the next. For this initial production, we limited ourselves to the community of Stykkishólmer and the immediate outlying area, with one exception. Oddný Ólafsdóttir was a test report that we used to help develop our technique. Gathering reports from other parts of Iceland will mean a portrait of greater nuance and complexity. The prospect of worldwide collection offers the possibility of a collective self-portrait as a debabelized language. As the collection grows, so too the resolution of this portrait. I imagine an eventual resolution so rich it becomes a subject. A collective self-portrait is closer to paradox than oxymoron. Although there are many similarities, each community as well as individuals nourish its own particular awareness of weather, guided largely by basic geography. I imagine the weather reports from Laramie, Palermo, Hudson Bay, Gorky, Lake Baikal, Timbuktu, and so on. Iceland is only a starting point, but Iceland, more than most places, is a country that has forcibly been made to recognize the weather as dominant, essentially unpredictable presence that influence the outcome of all things on the island. The history of Iceland is in great measure a history dominated by the events of weather and geology. It's 2006. Weather is the key paradox of our time. Weather that is nice is often weather that is wrong. The nice is occurring in the immediate and the individual, and the wrong is occurring system-wide. The scale of event abstracts it from its easy recognition as the natural inclination to accept masks nasty as nice. It is winter. Here I am in New York City. It's mild and still. I spend the evening over dinner outside as the weather reorganizes geography and relationship around me. So that's the introduction. And now I'd like to read a selection of voices from the weather report too. So here from a woman, Bjartna. She was actually the librarian here in this building when I first came here. And actually, she used to live in a house over in this area. When I was a little girl, I lived in a very good place as far as the weather was concerned. In bad weather, it was horrible. Everything shook and rattled, and you lay awake at night wondering what would happen if the house was blown out to sea. Oh yes, I just made a ship of it. If it blows away, it's bound to turn upside down and sail on its roof. And then I'm safe inside the house. I lived with that until I was almost 10. I was terrified. I'm a fisherman's wife, and I didn't always feel secure when the weather was at its worst in those years. Somehow you managed to smother that. But it's very stormy here in Stykkishólmer. It's always windy at some time during the day. Once I went to visit my husband. He was at sea and based in a village I won't name. And they took us, their visiting wives, out to sea with them and sailed almost all the way to the Faroe Islands in crazy weather. I had 5 children at home, and here I was on the verge of dying from fear, simply from fear. And that was supposed to be a really cozy trip. But we just lay there rigid without a clue what was going to happen. Difficult experiences started when I was 3 years old. I lost my father, drowned at sea. Naturally, I've never really gotten over that. When I was 12, I lost my uncle at sea, so I'm not really terribly fond of storms in the sea. The weather is always connected with the sea in my mind. When the weather's bad, I always watch the sea. That's what puts the fear into me the most, the sea. If the sea starts moving, I know what to expect. The weather has always had an effect, a very big effect on me. I feel best in rain and calm. Then I can be indoors, shut myself away a bit, but I feel bad in storm and rain. I live in a house with huge windows, and when the storm used to take hold of those windows, it was awful. I'm not afraid anymore. I don't think I was what they call afraid of the weather. I've always associated the weather with the sea, but the weather itself, I'm not afraid of that. I get fed up with the light. I get fed up with the bright summer. I want to stay awake all night then, but I think it's a wonderful time of year that's coming now with the darkness. There's a little bit of a twist to all this because if it's dark, I don't need to roam about and be with other people like you do when it's bright. So that's my opening salvo. And then here we are, a young girl, Elva, who was a fish factory worker. I can't recall any serious weather here. No, I don't think there's anything, I don't think so. But Jesus, when I got confirmed, the weather was crazy then. And I had to put a bag over my head to keep my hairdo in place. And of course it blew away. There was so much wind that I had to fight my way to church. And here is Ale, he's a student, young student. The best weather is the weather I can play basketball in. The worst weather is when I can't play basketball. I think. And here's Margaret. I started working for the Post in Hveragerði when I was 12. Once I was delivering the mail in a bag in a big snowstorm in a blizzard, and I took a shortcut in the village. I was so tired, I'd almost finished, and I thought to myself, I'll just have a quick lay down here. And I fell asleep. Then I woke up with a bulldozer clearing the snow close by, and it had drifted right over me. That's how people freeze to death, but I woke up. Afterwards, I started thinking, what would have happened if I'd been somewhere else with no traffic? My father told me that was one thing you must never do. But walking in a snowstorm, you just feel tiredness coming on, and oh, it's so nice to lie down in the soft snow. And here Johan, who was quite an elderly gentleman who died just before the book was published. And he was a retired lighthouse keeper in an area in Iceland which is only reachable by boat. One winter, when I was little, there was so much snow that my father had to go out through the upper floor window to dig his way down to the door. Imagine that snowfall. It's unknown these days. When I was at the Hornbjarg lighthouse, everything revolved around the weather. I could almost say that I shifted my position in my chair according to the weather. I could feel it all. The weather and weather instruments. I had to record the weather at 3-hour intervals round the clock for 24 years. I had to go up onto the mountain every single day, whatever the weather, so I ought to have some definition of the changeability of the weather. But I'm such a blockhead. It's a fact that even if you do something daily that has an effect on you, it's as if it never sticks in your mind as a special phenomenon, unless you're hit over the head. But sometimes I feel my whole life was spent more or less in peril. Thank you. We do have encore material, so if you just keep that applause going another few minutes, I will read 2 short, 1, 2, You may regret it, but we'll give it a try. So these are texts written back in 1990. The first one's called Making Being Here Enough. I don't want to read. I don't want to write. I don't want to do anything but be here. Doing something will take me away from being here. I want to make being here enough. Maybe it's already enough. I won't have to invent enough. I'll be here and I won't do anything, and this place will be here, but I won't do anything to it. And maybe because I'm here and because the me and what's here makes what's here different, maybe that will be enough. Maybe that will be what I'm after, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'll be able to perceive the difference. I need to find a way to make myself absolutely not here, but still be able to be here to know the difference. I need to experience the difference between being here and not changing here, and being here and changing here. I set up camp early for the night. It's a beautiful, unlikely evening after a long, rainy day. I put my tent down in an El Greco landscape, the velvet purples, the mottled greens, the rocky stubble. But El Greco changes here. He makes being here not enough. I am here, and I can't be here without El Greco. I just can't leave here alone. So then we have a text here called When Dickinson Shut Her Eyes. One of my great passions is Emily Dickinson, on a par with Iceland. The full title, When Dickinson Shut Her Eyes, I Go to Iceland. I was reading the letters of Emily Dickinson. I began wondering about travel in Iceland too, wondering about the insistence of my returns here and about the necessity and the migratory regularity of them. I began to wonder about travel altogether, about the how and the what of it. It's not so simple as a car or a train or as nameable as a place. I thought about Emily Dickinson's travels. From the first letter she wrote, she told her correspondent she didn't go out. She didn't want to go out, and that she wouldn't come to visit them. Dickinson stayed home insistently. Locking herself into her upstairs room, she invented another form of travel and went places. Dickinson's invention was multiplication, herself an empirical reach. Everything that could be felt, heard, seen, or smelt, everything perceptible or discernible from 280 Main Street, Amherst, Massachusetts. Perceptible includes the library. Somehow Dickinson used the library as an empirical source. Somehow she learned to consume its content sensorially. Her library was not a source of acquired knowledge, not a tool of the intellect. Her library was simply another perceptible thing, becoming another entrance, confirmation of all she sensed in the world. Even her poems about God and being dead are eyewitness. Sequestered from the world, knowing that going out into it hampered her ability to invent it, Dickinson stayed home except for 2 summer trips to Cambridge as a child and 1 to Washington later in life. Dickinson stayed home when Ralph Waldo Emerson visited her brother next door. In her verse, Dickinson spoke of Vesuvius at home. In her letters, she said she traveled when she closed her eyes, and that she went to sleep as though it were a country. In her room alone, she said, was freedom. Here she wrote 1,775 poems. Dickinson shut her eyes and went places this world never was. For the time being, Dickinson's here with me in Iceland. For someone who stayed home, she fits naturally into this distant and necessary place. Her writing is an equivalent of this unique island. Dickinson invented a syntax out of herself, and Iceland did too. Volcanoes do. Dickinson stayed home to get at the world, but home is an island like this one, and I come to this island to get at the very center of the world. Now, there's a lot more, but I think that's a good ending.